On the next Probably True Solar Stories, Mrs. Prout returns to Mazz and Charlie's house to give them a warning. But Mazz and Charlie have already left for Chico, and despite her efforts, it's just bad timing for Sylvia, and really for everyone. Welcome back to Probably True Solar Stories. We're heading towards the end of the Solar Heist, or How I Got Into the Solar Business. I'm your Solar Story host, Tor Solar Fred Valenza, and if you've missed the previous episodes of the Solar Heist, don't panic. I've left links in the show notes for you to catch up. Spoiler alerts ahead. When we last left Mazz, he'd just confronted two anti-solar out-of-towners. For some reason, they really wanted to stop Sylvia's Chico landfill from being turned into a solar project. So Sylvia sent Mazz to try to talk it out with the guys, but the two strangers preferred to fight first and talk later. Meanwhile, Charlie was searching for bodies buried under the same Chico landfill. He'd enlisted the help of Max the Man, a corrupt Customs and Border Control agent, and Max the dog, his cadaver-sniffing German shepherd. Will Mazz win his fight with the anti-solar folks? Will Charlie find the dead bodies and pin Sylvia for the murders, helping him to finally find out the identity of the Solar Pope? Let's find out.
Boom, la 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 la, oh, oh, la 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 la.
The Solar Heist, or How I Got Into the Solar Business, Part 10, Timing, is written and read by Tor Solar Fred Valenza. People say life is about cause and effect. You take an action, do your best, and expected results happen. Like you put the car into drive, you step on the gas, and the car moves forward on the road. Cause and effect. But then a deer jumps in front of you and totals your car. Is that bloody deer head sticking through your windshield because you stepped on the gas? Or because Bambi decided to cross the road at the wrong time? This much I know. Cause and effect, hard work, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can Google map the course of your whole life and follow the path perfectly. But when bad timing crosses the road, everyone gets fucked. Bambi dies, your car gets totaled, nobody gets what they want when they want it. That's my experience, and that's where we were in Chico. What I wanted, what I planned for, was helping Charlie and Beth to close their 4-year undercover DOEOIC operation. On the drive up to Chico, Charlie was so excited. He said he was so close to busting the head of the solar crime syndicate. They had Richard Prout's cell phone, they had Richie 3-time's cell phone, and as of last night, they had George One-Way's cell phone. Between the calls, text, emails, and contacts, they were going to find the Solar Pope and have enough evidence to close down the entire money laundering syndicate. Case closed. Then me and Pauline would be protected, and we'd go back to our new normal lives. Charlie and Beth would move up the Department of Energy Intelligence world and maybe settle down. I could have seen them with kids. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we'd still be neighbors somewhere. Anyway, that was the plan. But you know, fucking timing.
Dun, la, 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 la.
Timing brought Mrs. Prout's electric Mercedes over to my place looking for me and Charlie. She'd just sent us to Chico, but neither of us were picking up our phones, and that got her thinking that we hadn't left. Why didn't I pick up my phone? Because I was having a meeting with Danny and Randy, the two out-of-town anti-solar shitheads. Their meeting plan, as stupid as it was to try to rough me up in the strip joint's bathroom. These stupid shitheads told me to walk in first. So I did. I took one step in, and I slammed the bathroom door into Danny's face. My other hand reached up and forced Randy to wash his face on the edge of the white porcelain sink that was also by the door. So far, so good for my personal meeting skills. But that's when timing fucked us, because that's when I felt the buzz of Sylvia's call in my pocket. I didn't pick up because I was pumping Danny's head against the sink and tripping Randy to the floor and crushing his fat shaved head under my foot. Now, if God had given me a third hand to pick up my cell phone, I would have heard Sylvia tell me that Charlie and I were in danger, and I would have said, "Duh, Sylvia, tell me more." And she would have, except I didn't have a third hand. So she never did.
Boom, la 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 la. Boom, 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 la 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 la. Boom, boom, boom.
So timing is fucking with me, but it seemed to be really bored that day, because next it went to screw with my wife. Sylvia Prout drives her white E-Mercedes up to my front door, and when I mean she drives up to my front door, I mean she almost knocks on my door with the bumper of her E-Mercedes. Then she starts leaning on the Mercedes E-honker, and that's Sylvia's polite way of ringing my doorbell. Pauline peeks out the window next to the door, and Sylvia's waving at her to crank open the window. All the while, Sylvia's looking around left and right. Now Pauline, she knows Sylvia's a crazy old drunk, but not like this. Something is scaring her. Well, as you know from our night with George One-Way, we've got guns everywhere. Under the windowsill is a bookshelf with a large Smith & Wesson Model 610 10mm revolver with 6 shots. Pauline would need only one of them to puncture Sylvia's windshield, but she's not convinced Sylvia's a threat. She sees her fear or paranoia through the windshield. So Pauline opens our living room window, and Sylvia presses the auto down button of her Mercedes, and now they're talking through their respective windows. "Hi, Sylvia," says Pauline with a smile. "You doing okay?" "No, honey," Sylvia says. "I'm dead already. I'm just waiting for the bullet. Or the explosion. What do I care? As long as it's painless, and the way I'm juiced up right now, I'm not gonna feel a thing." "Sylvia, don't say that. You're going to be fine, okay? You just need some time," my Pauline says sweetly. Meanwhile, under the windowsill, she's pulling back the safety of our S&W. "Honey," said Sylvia, "I have no time. They're coming for me. They're coming for you and your husband, and they're coming for Charlie and his prissy accountant wife." "Who's coming? Your people? I mean, our people?" "No, hon. Not our people, not your people, not nobody's people. It's the DFM, the feds, not the good guys, the ones with no rules. You get me?" Pauline says she shook her head, pretending she knew nothing about Charlie's DOE affiliation. Sylvia smiled, seeing right through her. "Not Charlie's energy geek feds. I just heard about Charlie being part of the DOE intelligence counter whatever. Disappointing. So don't play dumb with me, Missy. I'm not talking about those feds, and I don't care about those feds. I'm talking about the DFM. They're the ones that you all have to worry about. God help you if Charlie doesn't know about them. They're coming after all of us. All of us." Sylvia waved her hands in the air. My Pauline, she's very bright. She knew what Charlie and Beth needed, and she was going to ask what DFM stood for and to get more information. Now, if timing were on our side, Sylvia would have explained everything about the DFM, but no. Instead, when Sylvia was waving her hand in the air saying all of us, a large red splotch flew into the side of her head, and Sylvia slumped her head down. She looked just like she was drunk, except for the dark blood painting down the side of her head. Now she was really leaning into the horn. Sadly, my wife has seen gunshot head wounds before, but that was also a good thing because there was very little shock. Instinctively, Pauline pulled back to the side before another shot flew through the window and hit my living room wall. At the same time, Beth across the street had heard Sylvia's doorbell horn, and just like the good DOE Girl Scout that she is, she had her own sniper rifle with a scope and was intending to blow away Sylvia if she did anything to Pauline. But it wasn't Beth who shot Sylvia. It was another asshole. And as soon as Sylvia's head slumped forward, this asshole drove his black Chrysler 300 behind Sylvia's E-Merc parked in our driveway. Whoever Mr. 300 was, he gets out with his sniper rifle that killed poor Sylvia in broad daylight. And now he's coming after Pauline. Beth sees this happening from Charlie's house and is about to take her shot, no questions asked. But right before she pulls the trigger, Mr. 300 dips his head into Sylvia's Merc window, trying to get her cell phone. And this is when I like timing, because while Mr. 300 is passenger window diving for Sylvia's cell phone, his ass is sticking out and just begging to be target practice for my wife and her Smith & Wesson. Even better, Beth shoots Mr. 300 in one cheek, and Pauline puts a 10mm cap into the other cheek. Now half his ass is blown away, and he pulls himself out of the Mercedes window again, and he raises his hands with Sylvia's cell phone in his hand. Mr. 300 says, "I give up." And of course, with the largest muscle in his body disintegrated, he falls down on his knees, then to his side. And this is great. He's bleeding but alive. Happy day for Beth. She's going to call her Department of Energy team, patch this guy up, and get answers. That's the plan. But before Beth can say you're under arrest, Mr. 300's head gets blown away by someone in a dark blue Ford Bronco. Whoever Bronco Man is, he's much smarter than Mr. 300, because he immediately drives away. And now Beth and Pauline have nothing. All they know is that Charlie is in trouble with some government agency called the DFM, initials that mean nothing to Beth and nothing to Pauline. Now here's where things kind of start making sense, but only in hindsight. While I'm beating the crap out of our two solar troublemakers in the bathroom, Randy is saying, "Stop it. We're DFM." Except the heel of my work boot is crushing his cheek, so I think I hear, "Stop it, we're deafin'." I thought he was saying he was going deaf, which didn't concern me, to be honest. So I said, "You hear this?" At which point I pounded Danny's head against the sink again. So maybe this wasn't bad timing. I guess bad mumbling is more accurate. Anyway, while I'm taking care of business in the bathroom, Charlie's at the Prout's Chico landfill, soon to be a solar project, and searching for buried cats, otherwise known as certain awful things, otherwise known as dead bodies. So why didn't Charlie answer Sylvia's phone calls trying to warn him? Because she was calling too late. He was already dealing with the DFM. Charlie's plan was to use the dead bodies for leverage against Sylvia. If he'd known that she was now dead, I think he'd have called off the cadaver hunt and been safe. But he didn't know. So once again, timing fucks everything. What I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but this is what Charlie told me a few hours ago. I'd given Charlie some ideas about where I'd dropped off the dumpsters, but there was no telling what Prout's workers did with the cats inside those dumpsters. Prout said that he'd kept a buried cat's ledger with coordinates just in case he had to move them. But Beth couldn't find that Excel sheet or a map or anything on Richard Prout's phone, and we couldn't get into his laptop. So that's why Charlie invited Max the man and Max the dog to Sylvia's landfill. Before transferring to Customs and Border Control at the Oakland docks, Max the man and Max the dog were a cadaver team. They were trained to find blood and flesh among a lot of scents, including landfills. To enhance their chances of finding our cats, Max the man gave Max the dog a whiff of a small vial of a special chemical used to mimic the scents of decomposed bodies and bones. Max the man bent down and opened the vial. Max the dog put his German Shepherd wet nose on top of the vial. From where Charlie was standing, it smelled like a putrid-smelling salami sandwich slathered with diarrhea aioli under a layer of soft vomit cheese. He gagged and swallowed back his breakfast. But Max the dog didn't jerk his nose away. He knew that smell, and he knew what Max the man wanted. But he gave Charlie and Max the tilted head look, like, "You gotta be kidding me." "I don't blame you, Maxie," said Max the man. "This mission is like trying to smell a rose inside a giant pile of shit." He glared at Charlie. "I understand. Let's walk him around and keep giving him a sample," Charlie said. So they kept walking with Charlie carrying a shovel and a pickaxe, one in each hand. And this is where good and bad timing showed up at the same time. Because for the next hour, Charlie, Max the man, and Max the dog were searching a 10-block area with mounds of garbage and trash. That was the good thing, because if they'd been any closer to the parking lot, the 4 guys wearing COVID masks and ball caps would have seen them and shot them. So instead of waiting, the COVID-masked rangers decided to go on a Charlie hunt. They had to make their way through 100 mounds of 10-foot-tall trash, giving Charlie and Max a lot of cover. What the DFM guys didn't see was the little drone watching over Charlie and Max's cadaver search party. Charlie heard it and looked up. There were scavenger birds flying all around the landfill, but a drone didn't fly like a bird. It was a few 100 feet high, but it hovered too much to be a bird. Max saw it too. "Is Mrs. Prout trying to keep tabs on us?" Max the man asked. "Probably," said Charlie. But Charlie thought it was one of his DOE drones surveilling them while they searched for the bodies. That had been the plan. But then timing called. That is, Beth called Charlie. "Hi, sweetheart," said Charlie. At that time, Beth and Pauline were in Beth's car driving. By the tone of her voice, Charlie could tell Beth was worried. "Charlie, listen to me. Sylvia Prout is dead. She was assassinated in Pauline's driveway. We wounded the sniper, and he was giving up. But then someone else drove by and killed the assassin. Pauline and I are okay, but we left home on our way to the safe house." "Good," Charlie said. "I wouldn't call it good, sweetheart, because when I called base camp for the cleanup at Pauline's, nobody picked up. Nobody, Charlie. I tried 4 direct lines. I don't know if they're dead or just not picking up. Is there anybody from our team watching you right now?" Charlie looked up at the drones hovering above. "I'm not sure. There is a drone. Is that ours?" "It could be. But listen to me, darling. I don't know what we're going to find at that safe house, so I want to tell you what I know. I have the number for the Solar Pope. It's the same number on Richie's phone, on Richard's phone, and I just confirmed that it's on Sylvia's phone too, and she recently called it. Before we left, I looked up the listing, but the name is literally John Smith, and the Social Security number tied to it is fake." "Not surprising." "No, but sweetheart, it's a 202 number. It's Washington, D.C. We can't be sure, but there's a good chance that the Solar Pope doesn't just live in D.C. He's part of the government. I'm texting the number to you now." "Okay. But there's one more thing, Charlie. Before she died, Sylvia said that she knew about us being undercover, and she didn't care. She warned me about the DFM. Have you ever heard of the DFM?" Charlie thought about it. "No. It could be an acronym for anything." "Right. But given everything that's happened, I did a global search on the Homeland Security Intelligence Database, the one that's supposed to coordinate with all the intelligence divisions. It could be a coincidence, but there is one intelligence division that has a DFM acronym. It's part of the Department of the Interior. I didn't have a high enough classification to see what it is or what it means. Maybe they don't know we're undercover, but whoever they are, I think they're coming after us, Charlie." "And you've called into the DOE OIC hotlines?" "Yes," said Beth. "I told you. They didn't recognize my cover call signal, Charlie. They thought I was a crank and hung up. It's like our operation has been wiped. Only the director could wipe us, or someone at Homeland Security that's higher than him, which is a very short list." Charlie remained calm. Then he said, "Don't go to the safe house, sweetheart." "Then where do we go?" "New Jersey." "Oh, God. Okay. Understood. Be safe. I love you." "I love you too." New Jersey was a private code between them. I don't know what it means, but Charlie hasn't heard from Beth or Pauline since, and neither have I. Charlie hung up and was about to try his DOE team, but then he saw Max the man waving. "Charlie!" called Max the man. "We got him! We got him!" Charlie ran over to where Max the man and Max the dog were standing over a shallow pit. Max the dog had found Prout's cats. and they really were certain awful things. He saw multiple skulls and bones, all slathered with the landfill's waste pus. Charlie said he could see the gunshot holes in some of the skulls. Leg bones were hanging together but splintered. Some skulls had teeth, others had splintered teeth, like a spiked ball and chain had busted into somebody's face. It was gruesome, but Charlie and Max the man and Max the dog were all smiling. The Maxes had earned their fees. And for Charlie, after 4 years of undercover work, this was like finding gold. He smiled, but he couldn't celebrate, because at that moment, Max pointed in the distance to the 4 masked DFM guys heading towards them. They were darting in and out of the trash heaps. Charlie saw that they had automatics in their hands, not rifles, so they had to get closer. It was maybe 50 yards. Charlie knew that Max the man and Max the dog were even more in the dark than he was. As usual, he wanted to do the right thing. He didn't want them to die because of him. "Max, do you have a gun for protection?" Max the man was taken aback after their celebration. He said, "Max the dog is my protection, Charlie. Why do you ask?" Then Max the man made a sharp whistle, and suddenly Max the dog began to growl and bare his teeth at Charlie. Charlie raised his hands. "Max, I don't have time to explain much, but I'm not the one threatening you or Max the dog. I have 2 guns. I'm going to take one out and give it to you, with your permission. Those 4 men coming our way, I'm not sure who they are, but I am sure that they want to kill us. May I take out my guns and give one of them to you?" Max considered for a second. Charlie always had that calm, sincere voice that always made people trust him. That was his gift. That was one of the reasons why we were friends, and the reason he could stay undercover with Richard Prout for 4 years. Max the man nodded and made another whistle, and Max the dog became a puppy dog again. Charlie took one automatic from behind his belt and another from his ankle. When Charlie pulled out his Glock, the drone above Charlie must have seen him, because it suddenly pulled up and away. At that moment, Charlie still wasn't sure if the drone was friend or foe, but he focused on the DFM people making their way towards them. The men wore jeans, windbreakers, and navy blue baseball caps, and they were openly holding handheld automatics with extended clips. Their guns were raised while searching the mounds and stepping around the dumb, spongy landmine of decomposing refuse. Charlie looked at Max the man. "Let's use the mounds for protection. If we run out of bullets, use anything hard on the ground and throw it at them." "Charlie, I don't know who you are or who those dudes are coming after us, but I'm not worried. Clearly, you've never aimed a weapon at an angry German shepherd running at you at 30 miles an hour and trained to act like a wolf. Max!" Then Max the man whistled, making Max the dog stand by him and look into his handler's eyes. Max the man pointed at himself and Charlie with a hand-waving circular motion. Then he gave Max a dog treat. "Hold," whispered Max the man with another hand sign. Max the dog stood on all 4 paws in a hunting dog stance, ready to spring. "Charlie, don't shoot yet," Max said. "This is Max the dog's happy spot. When I say the word, he's going to lead, and when he does, these 4 motherfuckers are going to panic. They're not going to hold their ground. They're going to run. If they try to shoot Max, that's when we shoot. Understand?" "Got it," Charlie said. Then Max the man turned back to Max the dog and said, "Wolf hunt." He then pulled his fists across his chest as if tightly pulling the knot of an invisible rope. Immediately, Max the dog transformed into a wild wolf. He came out from behind our trash heap with bared teeth and running for the closest DFM man. Charlie said it looked like someone had bowled Max the dog at 4 stray pins in a bowling alley, and just like Max the man said, the 4 pinheads split into 4 directions. "Holy shit!" said Pinhead 1. Confused, Pinhead 1 suddenly jerked his gun up to shoot at Max the dog, but Max's surprise attack made it slip out of his hand, do a daisy wheel spin, and fall to the ground. That forced Pinhead 1 to immediately decide whether to run or to go for his gun. He made a bad decision and decided to go for the gun just when Max the dog was just a couple of feet away. As Pinhead 1 reached down, Max's 100 pounds of muscle, bones, and teeth leaped and flattened Pinhead number 1. Then he started biting him fiercely in the neck like a wolf taking down an elk. While that was happening, Charlie and Max the Man followed their plan. They shot their Glocks at the 3 remaining DFM pinheads trying to point at Max the dog. Max the Man probably spent some time at the firing range because his first shot took off the baseball cap and part of the skull of Pinhead number 2 as he was raising his hands towards Max. That left Pinheads 3 and 4, who were trying to fire at Charlie and Max while also watching their ass as Max the dog started elk hunting again. Charlie wasn't a bad shot either, and he fired several rounds, but not before Pinhead 3 fired and hit Max the Man in the shoulder. Pinhead 3 seemed very pleased with himself until Max the dog nosedived into his balls, making his knees buckle. Now on the ground, Max the dog did what wolves do and tackled number 3 to his back and went for the neck. But Pinhead number 3 was panicking. He was jerking his head left and right, trying to protect his neck, and so Max bit into his face on the first bite. As he yelled, Max opened his jaws again and closed his teeth on Pinhead number 3's ear for his second bite. And finally, for bite number 3, he got to the throat. Pinhead number 3's screaming scared the shit out of Pinhead number 4, so he turned around and started running and firing blindly behind him, spraying 20 rounds. Before Charlie and Max could take cover, one of the rounds hit Max the Man in his stomach, and another one hit Charlie in the arm, making him drop his gun. When Pinhead 4 saw Charlie and Max were both down, he stopped running. He couldn't see Max the dog because he was behind a trash mound and finishing the shouting Pinhead number 3. So number 4 turns around and runs back towards Charlie and Max to finish them. Bleeding and his gun 5 feet in front of him, Charlie raised his hands. "Before you do it, I have to know. Who are you?" he asked Pinhead number 4. "DFM. Homeland Security." "Okay, I'm Charlie Boston. I'm an undercover Department of Energy Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence. DOE OIC. Call it in. We're on the same team." "No, we're not, Mr. Boston." "Yes, I know who you are. And DFM stands for Defense of Fossil Minerals. The current administration, through the Department of Energy, is attacking fossil minerals. And by that, I mean oil, gas, and coal. This DOE, your DOE, is attacking trillions of dollars in investment and hundreds of thousands of oil and gas jobs. We built America. We built the world. And you DOE renewable energy wonks think that America can wave a cheap solar panel and a wind turbine and replace us? Please. America can't survive without oil and gas, Charlie Boston. This administration wants to phase out fossil fuels by 2050. Well, the DFM is here to phase out you and everyone like you by," he looked at his watch, "right now." Pinhead number 4 raised his arm to shoot Charlie's head, but just as he was about to fire, Max the dog came from behind a trash mound and charged. Pinhead number 4 saw him coming, but first he fired at Charlie. Charlie had enough time to roll away before the shot. Faced with shooting Charlie again or Max the dog, Pinhead number 4 chose Max. But his human reflexes were slow compared to Max the dog, who quickly dug his paws to the right, avoiding the bullet. 2 shots hit the ground, and number 4 realized that he not only wasted bullets, he'd wasted time. Max was right in front of him now, and he leaped, biting down on Pinhead number 4's wrist. But this Pinhead, he was strong. He held his gun, wildly firing off rounds. But Max the dog was trained not to let go of hands holding guns, so Pinhead number 4's wrist became like a tug-of-war ropey dog toy. Then Max's jaws started yanking Pinhead's wrist down to the landfill muck. But rather than play the tug-of-war, Pinhead number 4 went down and rolled, and the two of them started a wrestling match. Charlie got a hold of his gun again, but Pinhead and Max were rolling around too fast for him to take a clean shot without hitting Max the dog. At one point, Pinhead number 4 used his free hand to punch the side of Max's jaw, and that worked to make Max let go of Pinhead's bloody wrist. But that was actually his mistake. Pinhead had just a second to pass his gun to his other hand before Max leaped onto his chest and savagely bit into his Pinhead neck, doing honor to Max's wild wolf ancestors. The more Pinhead tried to fight, the more Max dug deeper on Pinhead's throat, until his hand fell back to the ground, and Max the dog stopped feeling the pulse of blood coming out of his throat. Finally, the landfill was quiet. Max the man's defense plan had worked, but not specifically for him. His stomach was shredded by 2 or 3 bullets. Charlie said it was hard to tell with all the blood, but he was alive long enough for Max the dog to come up and nuzzle Max the man's hand. As if he were lying on his couch at home, Max the man lifted a bloody hand and scratched Max the dog behind his ears. "Good boy, Maxie. Good boy," said Max the man. "Charlie, give Maxie a treat, and tell Mazz he's got a new dog." Then Max the dog whined and licked Max the man's cheek. I hope Max felt that soft, wet tongue before his eyes started staring into the sky and at the drone that had watched everything. The drone suddenly flew away to whoever was piloting it. Did it belong to the DFM, the Solar Syndicate, some other agency, a kid hobbyist? Charlie didn't know. What he did know was that his plan of tying all the strings together and unwinding the Solar Syndicate had hit a deer in the road. With Sylvia Prout dead, his DOE division gone silent, and Beth going into hiding, Charlie needed to think fast before the next DFM hit squad was sent after him. The only thing he had was a telephone number that Beth said belonged to the head of the syndicate, the Solar Pope, and he assumed the father of Richie 3 times. Charlie collected the phones from the 4 DFM people and checked to see if the number Beth had sent him was in their phones. None were. He stared at the Washington, D.C. number that Beth had sent him. He seemed to be at a dead end, but he felt that that number would open up a door, so he pressed his thumb down and called it. The line rang a few times, and then it picked up. Charlie Boston. My God, if it isn't Charlie Boston! Finally! You don't look well, Charlie, said a female voice. Charlie said it sounded middle-aged, maybe a woman in her 40s or early 50s. Charlie looked up at the drone hovering. The drone was back. He briskly started walking back towards the car, looking around for more threats. The drone followed. No need to run, Charlie. I'm not chasing after you. I'm trying to protect you. Max the dog saw Charlie move. He looked at Max the man on the ground and hesitated. Maybe it was Max's last protection hand signal, or maybe because he just knew that Max the man wasn't there anymore. But Max the dog finally galloped and followed after Charlie on the phone. Who is this? Well, you call me the Solar Pope, Charlie, and I resent that. You need a new non-gender defining metaphor. But that's not the only mistake you've made. Really? Tell me more. Not like this. Follow my drone. Let's meet in person, Charlie. And invite Mazz. He'll want to hear what I have to say, too. As for your safety, bring all the firepower in your vehicles and body. I'll be alone and unarmed, so you'll be completely safe. But come in shooting if it makes you feel better. I'll also have a first aid kit for you, if you want to patch up your arm. Charlie made it back to his car, put Max the dog in the front seat, and then followed the drone for a few miles, each road getting more and more rural. Finally, the drone stopped over a modern ranch house set next to an alfalfa farm. It was a green, low-lying crop, so it was easy to see the land was deserted. The closest neighbor was a quarter-mile away. There was an open garage with no cars parked inside, and Charlie's car was the only one on the street. Everything was quiet except for the drone hovering over the ranch house like an alien wasp getting ready to sting. That's when Charlie called me, and eventually we did meet Mrs. Solar Pope and hear what she had to say. Finally, everything made sense. But I'll tell you all about that after a little coffee break. I'm sorry. This is the last cliffhanger, I promise. But come back next week for the finale and the answers to all those loose ends. The Solar Heist, or How I Got Into the Solar Business Part 10, Timing, was written and read by Tor Solarfred Valenza. And Probably True Solar Stories is a production of Unthink Solar PR and Communications. Be bold for solar, stand out, and educate. See you next week.